weeks to get through. Next up, we're going to be talking about Ollie Skipp and Pape Matar, to be fair. Obviously, when Bentancur got that horrible injury at Leicester, we all feared the worst for our season, feared the worst for our midfield. Since that, though, Sarr and Skipp have both stepped up. Did we forget about Ollie Skipp? Because when he first made his name for himself in the Spurs midfield under Nuno in the early stages of Antonio Conte, he was one of our better players, if not our best player. And he's showing that kind of form now in the last couple of games. So are we still worried about the midfield moving on from now until the end of the season, or are we happy now with the emergence of Skipp and Sarr? We'll start with you, Danny.
Look, I wouldn't say we're happy with the emergence. I mean, look, you could say to an extent you're happy with it because, look, at the end of the day, that's all we've got, right? So we have to kind of be happy with it if they are gonna. Let's not get over the top and over our heads and say they've been very good. They've done their jobs considering their ages, considering their situations, and all this kind of stuff. I think they're doing okay. I think they're doing all right. I haven't seen a performance where from any of them where I've been like, wow, that's unbelievable. Like, what a performance. I've seen good performances. I saw some of the stuff that they did against AC Milan and they against AC. I know AC Milan have not been great this season. They've been pretty poor, to be honest with you. But they held their own in that game. And I think with these two, you just got to hope that they can kind of show this consistency and try and keep improving on what they're doing, because we have to rely on them at the moment now. We haven't got a choice. We haven't got Bentancur now. So if those two don't perform, or if either one of them don't perform, then we're in deep shit, really, to be honest with you. I think we're in a lot of problems. We haven't got Basuma still. So they are the only options we have. We've got Harvey White on loan, so we can't even use a youngster within our squad. And I think Alfie Devine is not ready for this kind of level of football just yet. So
don't tell that to Daigle.
Yeah, I know. Trust me. But look, I like the fact that they've played well in the last couple of games, and they're showing that we can rely on them. I think that's the best thing that I've seen from them. But I haven't seen anything that's going to be like, oh wow, these guys can really, really do an amazing job for us. But look, we've done all right considering the position we're in. Bentancur has been our best midfielder by far this season, I think. It definitely gives, maybe you could say, gives you a different type of stability in the midfield of Skipp, the way he's playing at the moment. I think he's a bit more defensive than someone like Bentancur, but obviously we don't have that player who can like just go past the player that easily, like say Bentancur can do. Yeah, and look, I wouldn't say we forgot about Skippy. I'd say that he's just had a bad season. He's had an injury as well, and he hasn't got into the flow of where he was when he started coming in under Nuno and under Conte when he first came in. Because he was actually quite, up until we got Bentancur, he was relied on quite a lot. And he did all right. I haven't seen a performance yet from Skipp to make me think like, wow, that this guy could be a absolute top player. I've seen good performances. I do think though the Spurs fan base do tend to overhype a lot of these youngsters, and it's the one thing I don't like, because we need to give these type of youngsters a bit of time to just let them play their game. Because what happens is you'll get them and they won't ever reach the potential the fans think that or whatever the media portrayed as what they could be, and then we're like, oh, they're just shit now. They're just shit. They're rubbish, and it's like it's not fair on them. You got to give them a chance. I'm not saying they're going to be top class midfielders, right? But out of the two, in terms of Sarr and Skipp, I see a lot more potential in someone like Sarr. I think he's younger as well, and you can see the kid's got a lot of talent. Like you can see he's got potential top class talent, but we need to just let him play his game, let him develop the right way. Don't expect too much of him, because I think that's going to really hinder his progression if he wants to kind of like stay in this team. And I think you're going to see a lot of rotation towards the last bit of the season between them two, until you get Basuma back maybe, and you might see Basuma come in a bit. But if they're doing really well, you might not see Basuma, because it seems to be that Conte does like Sarr and Skipp a lot in terms of the way he suits his system. So yeah, look, they're doing their job so far, and I hope it continues. Yeah, that's all. I can't really say much more on it, to be honest with you.
The reason I say did we forget about Skippy is because only a month ago, I mean, I was having conversations with Sim. I think we had a few conversations on the WhatsApp group as well about should we just let Skip go on loan? Should we aid his development a little bit more? And maybe we forgot about how influential maybe he was in that Nuno era and the early stages of that Conte era, because he was literally one of our best players, if not our best player in the Nuno era anyway. So Josh, what are you feeling about Skippy? And not only that as well, it's just like every manager seems to love him. Mourinho said he's going to be a future captain. Conte seems to love him as well. Poch was the one to bring him through and I think he was the one to send him out on loan, or maybe it was
Gave
Jose.
Him his debut,
gave him his debut. So every manager seems to love him. So what are you thinking, Josh?
Yeah, if I'm honest, I did forget about Skip because he had that injury. I didn't totally forget about him, but I just, if you're making your list of depth when it comes to midfielders and stuff, he was at the bottom for me, to be honest. I did forget that, Conte was talking about him being such an important player. Do you remember when he first came in, and he did so well before Bentancur came in? We had a nice run where it was Højbjerg and Skip, and we were winning games. We didn't, we went on a 10 unbeaten game run when Conte came in, and Skip was pivotal to that. And I seen him recently. To be honest, I just thought, when someone starts getting so many injuries, you think, are they ever actually gonna amount to anything or even be the same player they were? Like, kind of similar to how Winks has been, because when he first burst on the scene, he was pretty good, and then he started getting those injuries, and now he's kind of useless. So I did forget about Skip, but now that he's back, how can I say this? Like, without being disrespectful to Højbjerg, I have no problem with Højbjerg. I like Højbjerg, I do, but I would have rathered it be Højbjerg that was out so that Bentancur could play with someone like a Skip or something like that. Because I think Højbjerg, Skip, and Sarr are just so samey. Do you know what I mean? They all do the same thing.
Yeah.
It looks like it's.
They all do the same job, Josh.
You're back,
you're with us.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, sorry, it just keeps cutting out. I'm not sure what's going on, but so they all do the same thing. But Bentancur, I really feel, adds like that flair, and he's a better dribbler than any of them, I reckon. Maybe Sarr, I don't know. I need to see more of Sarr or something, but he can definitely draw players in. And he's got more strings to his bow, Bentancur, whereas Højbjerg is very one-dimensional to me. I know he made that great pass the other day. I feel like that's something that is quite rehearsed, like it's a rehearsed automation that they do in training and stuff like that. But I would have liked to... Skip he's been brilliant since he's come back in. I'm not worried about our midfield on... Sunday or Saturday, whenever it is we play Chelsea. I'm more worried about our defence. And you'd think if it was like, you've got two youngsters coming in to play in midfield, you'd be more worried about that position, wouldn't you? But if it was going to happen to us anywhere where our best player was going to go, probably Bentancur was the best thing for it to have happened. Do you know what I mean? The best place.
Do you think that Skippy keeps his place for Sunday, or would you like to see Pape Matar Sarr given a go?
So hard, man. I think Skip, because he properly dominated Rice, man. And Rice is better than anything that their midfield is serving up on Sunday. I'll tell you that now. So I think Skip also, he's like, he's a Spurs boy. It's a London derby. Do you know what I mean? I still think Sarr has a higher ceiling, probably, but I'd just go with Skip for this game.
It just reminds me of the North London derby under Nuno at the Emirates, where Skip started on the bench after that brilliant run of form he was on. And I remember sitting there with Sim in the stadium in the Emirates, and when Skip came on, he was the best player on the park. Literally the best player on the park. He came on, was putting in challenges, driving us forward. And I was thinking, like, if Skip started that game, like, it could have been a different scoreline, could have been a different outcome. Obviously, we got battered that day. And, like, if he comes in at such a young age and performs like that in a North London derby, it fills me with confidence for him to come in this against this Chelsea side to have a good performance. But Sim, what are you thinking about the situation with Skippy?
Yeah, I think we all, like, collectively, when you're, I think Skip was down the pecking order, like for a while. When Sarr started at North London derby, that really showed how far down the pecking order Skip had been due to his injuries, and he'd been out for so long. After we all remember how good he was at Norwich, and then coming through it, and then coming to Spurs, everyone was so excited about him, and he got those nasty injuries that, you know, we kept hearing he was going to be out for a week, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it ended up being a whole year almost. Pretty much he was out. And then when he came back, he didn't really perform that well in a number of games. He wasn't really himself, and it kind of got the feeling like if Sarr's here now, we signed Basuma in the summer, Bentancur and Højbjerg are both playing well. It was like, should we loan Skip out? What's the best for his development? But unfortunately for Spurs, but fortunately for Skip, that we have had 2 long-term injuries, and he's really taken this chance now. It's like a second chance to prove himself, and I think we all forgot how excited we were about him last season, and when he was playing week in, week out, because this guy has a lot of quality. He's so mature for his age. He plays like a player in his late 20s, not in his early 20s, or even in his 30s. Like, he's got amazing positional awareness. His defensively, he almost, like, there's how many times the Skip, like, someone's taking him on in a challenge and you think he's beaten, and he'll somehow just wrap a sliding tackle around them and somehow win the ball, and it's like, wow, now you're like, now you're shocked that he's been able to win a challenge in that way. I thought that after the Milan game, everyone was waxing lyrical about Sarr, and fair enough, because Sarr was brilliant. But I think Skip's performance went under the radar 100%. As to how good he was. And then when you're picking a team for Sunday, people forget that how much experience Skip has compared to Sarr in terms of, you know, playing Premier League football. Knows his teammates a lot more as well. And I think Sarr, we even picked Sarr up at 11th, but I think it went under the radar how much of an obvious choice probably Skip was for that game, especially it being a derby. And I think it being a derby again on Sunday, I think you have to, and considering how well he played, I think Skip has to keep his place. But I think it's time to get excited about Skip again, in my opinion. And I actually think as well, like, I remember we said last season, when he was going through that good spell, you know, if he keeps this run of form up for a long period of time, he could have his eyes on that World Cup spot. And obviously he got injured and it never happened. But thinking about it now, you know, Calvin Phillips had a bad injury going into that World Cup and stuff. And I do think if he didn't have that injury, Skip, you know, that there could have been a space for him there. And I don't think he should give up any sort of ambitions, because I do think he could be a future England international. I really believe that he's of that quality.
All right.
Do you know, can I just add to that? It's interesting because with Skip, look, it's like I just said before. It's like, I think we need to kind of calm down on these midfielders like Skip and Sarr. I don't think they were like really brilliant in the games they played recently. They've done their job. It's like that's what they're paid to do. They're highly paid professional athletes, right? They've done what they're expected to do. And this is the thing, like, they're not like midfielders who are going to come in like a Bentancur or I mean, I wouldn't even class Bentancur. To me, is not a world-class player. He's a very good player, very talented player, but he's not a world-class player. A world-class player is someone like Kevin De Bruyne or like Rodri Kane, Harry Kane, those type of players. They're like the top 5 or 10 in their positions in the world. But with Skip, I think that what I've seen of him, I think he's someone who could be a good squad player. I'm just not sure if Skip's ever going to be that player we all want him to be or we all expect him to be. I just don't think he's talented enough. And like Josh was saying, I think if there's anyone out of the two who's going to make it in as a long-term Spurs player, I think Sarr would be the one of the two who would make it, because I think he offers more than he can do what Skip can do, but he can also do more. And I think you can see with Sarr, he's a lot more raw. He's very raw. Like Skip is he reminds me of Harry Winks when Harry Winks was coming in. Like he does everything like doesn't do too many crazy things. He doesn't do too many outrageous. He does his job. He ticks the ball right. It's not like he's really bad, but he's not like he's really good either. He's just all right. That's how I see him. And I think with someone like Sarr, I think you definitely see there's there's a lot more potential quality in there, and you can see the way he kind of how he controls the ball, how he can take on players, how strong he is for someone of his physique. He's actually pretty quick as well, considering his. So I think someone like him, I think personally, I'd like to see Sarr given a bit more of a chance because I think there's a lot more potential in him. But look, in terms of the Chelsea game, I think you probably will go with Skipp purely because he's had a good game against West Ham. You want to keep him in that momentum, that kind of the mood that he's in at the moment. It is another London derby. He just played in one, and he did really well in that game. But again, it's one game, and we got to keep our feet on the ground and not get over the top just over 1 or 2 games that we see them play better than they normally do.
It's interesting what you said before about maybe Spurs fans overhyping the academy products year on, year out. And the only one that maybe we didn't overhype was Harry Kane. And he's the one that's gone on to be an elite world-class player. I mean, I remember when he was breaking through and he was scoring all those goals, we kind of overhyped him more in jest than anything else, like with the Jesus memes and all that kind of, he was stumbling around players. Nobody could tell that he was going to go on and be what he's become.
Nobody.
Like, the players that we've overhyped, I remember Japhet Tanganga after that debut. I mean, we all said he's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. Harry Winks, Ryan Mason, even to a certain degree. Ollie Skipp. I mean, there's been loads.
Ryan Mason. You're on that one. I was never on that train. I'm never on the Ryan Mason.
Lewis Holtby was going to be good.
Lewis Holtby. He wasn't an academy product, but we definitely overhyped Holtby.
You know, in the early days of Winks, I saw elements of Scott Parker in Harry Winks. I saw elements of. I saw that he could be that player who could really. I never saw the strength that Scott Parker was a small player as well, but he had a lot of strength. Like, he was quite an aggressive player. Yeah. I didn't see the aggression in Harry Winks, but I saw the kind of ability that I thought that like Scott Parker had, and I thought he could actually be something in our midfield. I'm not saying he's going to be a top player, but he could do a job for us, like in a squad. But I do think with Harry Winks that he just, since that massive injury he had, I think it just went downhill. He had that. Obviously, everyone will remember the Bernabeu night. That's his best performance in the Spurs shirt, bar none. But I think he never lived up to the hype that the Spurs fans gave him. And this is the thing that I say about we need to stop kind of putting so much hype and pressure on these youngsters, because if they don't make it, we're gonna be the ones saying, "Oh, look, our academy is shit. This and that is shit." But we don't help the problem if we keep putting so much pressure on these youngsters. Just let them be, let them develop. Like you said, Harry Kane. No one expected Harry Kane to be the player that he is now, our top goal scorer of the club. I mean, that's insane. So, yeah, this is why I want to say just keep grounded with these youngsters and just let the club help try progress them and see what happens.
And there you have it. It only took Danny Kyriakou 50 minutes to blame the fans, and but let's move on. Let's talk about Clement